Hey friend, welcome back to the Tilt and Shift Photography Business Podcast. And I'm doing a solo show today. It's one of my homework episodes. So if you like doing little homework or journal prompts or doing that, pen to paper work to let concepts sink in, grab yourself your journal or a little sheet of paper that you can work on. And I'm going to walk you through one of the secrets to composition that you probably haven't learned. It's one that has made huge difference in my work, and it is one that I adamantly teach my mentorship clients. So if you find yourself struggling with composition, and that could look like wondering which photo of a series to deliver to a client, or if you don't really know where to stand while you're shooting, or if you're kind of delivering like 5 to 10 of nearly the same images, you are struggling with your composition. So if any of that applies to you, keep listening to today's episode because I am going to share with you a composition secret. And one, it comes from one of my clients, one of my mentorship clients. Her name is Raven. And she sent me an email and she said, "Can I get your opinion between these two shots? Just in general, I'm trying to see which is stronger and something you wouldn't normally see. It's not for my portfolio or to feature on the site. I just generally want to improve my eye for composition." So side note, if you are listening to this in your car, I'm going to try to describe the images to you, but these are also going to be on a YouTube video. So that video will be in the show notes and you can watch that so you can actually see what I'm talking about, but I'm just going to try to describe her images. So if you've learned about composition in art class or with other photographers, composition does have some rules, quote unquote rules, that generally guide what makes an image more pleasing to the eye. And pleasing is obviously like a very subjective term, but bear with me. One of the main compositional elements in effective composition is something called subject separation. And that's where all of the subjects are, you guessed it, separated. So it means that there's like no intersecting bodies or limbs. Like think about like the family portrait where the person has their hand over the shoulder and then all you can see is the hand, you can't see the arm. So that is kind of like, it makes our brain kind of do a hiccup, like where's that hand coming from? And we can rationalize that we know that that hand belongs to the person beside them. But when you first look at the image, it's abrupt, right? Or if there's a bunch of people kind of standing around each other and their arms are sort of missing because they're hiding behind the bodies of the people around them. So those subjects are not separated. They're separated when you can actually see which limbs belong to which body. And there's no like poles intersecting heads or like trees growing out of a shoulder, things like that. So the reason that is pleasing, the reason that subject separation is pleasing is because the shapes are more clear and it is easier for our brains to figure out exactly where one person ends and the next person begins, and thus getting to the meaning of the image more effectively, more quickly. You get to the point rather than having to go through this meandering, and I mean, it only takes milliseconds, but it's enough to like kind of lose interest in the image. So as I mentioned, I coach my subjects on subject separation constantly. It's one of the topics in my video course, which is called Definitely Documentary. And it's also like a main topic and continual theme in my group mentorship Storyteller school. So again, I'll link those in the show notes, but I'm just giving you the quick lowdown today. This is the one secret that lots of people miss, and it's one that will make a huge difference to your photos going forward. So it's important that our brains clearly understand the placement and therefore role of each subject in a composition. Now, I'm going to describe what Raven's images look like. And if you're on YouTube, you are going to look at them right now. I'm just going to share them with you. So in image one, we have 3 people seated at a table and one person standing. Well, both images are like there's 3 people at a table and one person is standing. The person standing seems to be entertaining the people who are sitting. So it's 3 guys, and I would guess it's the groom who's standing. And in the image one, they're all around the table. The groom, will call him for lack of knowing whatever role he has. He's standing, he's talking to the guys. They're kind of like, they're just sort of laughing at him. Each subject, we can clearly see where all of their arms end and begin. We can clearly see the expression on their faces. and we can see the profile of the groom. Now in image 2, we have the groom's back is to us, and we can see all 3 fellas who are seated at the table, and they're slightly more expressive. They're laughing a little more. There's more gesture in their hands. And we can even see a bit of a gesture from the guy standing, but we can't see his face. What Raven has pulled into the image is a pool table. So now in the foreground, we have this pool table. Then we have the groom standing with his back to us. And then we have the 3 people who are being entertained by him. And they've all got like a slightly more expressive look on their face. That's image 2. Image 1, there's no pool table. And we see these 3 guys kind of looking up at their groom with a little bit softer expressions. They're still laughing, but there's less gestures. We can see more of the groom's face. And so that's the main difference between the 2 images. The pool table, and that we can't see the groom's face, more expression in the hands in the one image. So what do we do with that? Both of the images are technically good composition, right? Especially if we're looking at subject separation. All of the subjects are clearly separated. All of the subjects have varying degrees of expression. Like there's no like flat faces. There's more hand gestures in the one image, but they're all everyone kind of like looks like that would be their personality. So here, what I'm about to tell you is the secret to composition that you've probably never heard. And that's to ask yourself this question. And so if you're doing homework, the question is, what story do I want to tell? So the difference between these 2 images is the story, right? Composition is clean. We've got it. So how do we choose which one to give them? So here's the guidance that I gave my student. That first image, the one where it doesn't have the pool table and the 3 people are seated and we can see the profile of the guy who's standing. The first one seems to be more about the guy who's standing and about how the 3 guys who are seated kind of look up to him. It's a bit calmer, and it seems that the vibe in the image seems to be directed by the stander. The second image seems to be more about the 3 guys who are seated. It's more expressive. We can see more of their hands moving. It seems to be a little bit more intimate. The guy who's standing is less of a player because his back is to the camera. And including that pool table would imply that there's some sort of history surrounding pool related to this group of guys. Okay. So the composition, even the colors are great, like they're all complementary colors. They're kind of all in the same palette. And then we have some bursts of color. The subjects are separated. The lines are all straight. And overall, like they're both neat and clear. And we kind of get to the crux of the image pretty quickly. Our brain doesn't have to do any mental figuring out of whose limb goes where. So when you have those like compositional elements ticked off, we have to think less about composition as, is this right? And that's a question that my students often ask, is like, is this right? Right is so much less important than what does the composition say about the story. So sure, your composition may be quote unquote right based on these compositional rules, but the more important question, and the one that is really going to make an impact on your clients, is what does this composition say about the story? Okay. So if you're ever stumped as to which photo to deliver, these 2 steps are what's going to help you. Now write these down. Which image is compositionally the cleanest? Let's say you have 5 to 10 images of the same picture, more or less the same scene. Which one is compositionally the cleanest? And that will kind of narrow it down. You can even ask yourself who has like quote unquote pleasing expressions on their face. Like maybe some of them, their eyes are closed, or they're like looking away, or like they're double chinning, or something that like the person in that image would be like, that's not a great photo of me. Which isn't always important, mind you. There's always an asterisk to everything I say. That's not always extremely important, but it can help you kind of to narrow it down. Like, let's say everybody's kind of looking like they're like out to lunch. And the story is not about them being out to lunch, then that might be when you don't deliver. But if it is about them being out to lunch, then you would deliver it, right? So always an asterisk. But so compositionally, which one is the cleanest? And then what story is most important for my client? So if we think back about these 2 images that I just described, if pool has nothing to do with their story, then that's not the strongest image, right? Or we can crop the pool table out because it's not adding to that composition. It's not helping the story. If the groom and these guys play pool a lot, and that's like a way that they bond, it's important to their story, then yeah, that would be the stronger image, right? So the reason we need to get clear on these questions, which composition is cleanest, which story is most important for my client, is because delivering thousands of photos with multiple repeats of the same image is exhausting for them to go through. It's exhausting for us to edit, and it's exhausting for them to go through. And in that exhaustion, what's going to happen is they're going to miss the photos that are truly great. Giving them those subpar photos really, it does a disservice to our clients. It gives them extra work, and it dilutes our own work. It dilutes what we're really capable of. So our job as photographers is really to determine the best one or two. In doing that, like, we best serve them by giving them meaningful photos that immediately tell the story of their experience. So I hope you've written this down. What photo is compositionally the cleanest? And most importantly, what story am I trying to tell? Is that story the most important one for my client? All right, my friends, thanks for being here. If any of this has intrigued you, my documentary mini course, definitely documentary. So you learn about, it's a definitive guide to documentary photography. It is available. You can download it anytime. Or if you want to really deep dive into this and see how all of this plays into your brand and your values, and you want to get real nerdy and really, really challenge yourself to uplevel your portfolio and your marketing and end up with a new website, jump on my waitlist for Storyteller School. All of that information is in the show notes. Thank you for being here. I love talking about this. If you can tell, I like getting super nerdy and really supporting you guys to be the best photographers that you can be. Have a beautiful day.